Caleb and Patrick have said in regards to sugar, I think it was Tom, the sugar daddy. It looks like sugar has a huge market and an ability for one to make good money if especially you're working within the government or there's a political side to it. How do we follow this up to ensure that as the media we've uncovered that this is not a uniquely, it's not something that's just happening this season. It may have happened before.
Yeah, I think that history is good for people who don't understand it to understand basically the history of what's happening now. It's interesting that neither Tom nor Patrick mentioned the sugar daddy by name.
And should that be where we would be?
Where we start, despite the fact that it was an era past. So technically we should be able to say his name. So there's some kind of fear of consequences for calling out these people by their names, yeah? Because we should have done this a long time ago to just expose the whole thing and let people understand exactly what's happening. And in the same vein, why are we importing sugar? Why can't we revive our sugar industries in this country? Of course, it's political, but it seems like a no-brainer to just put resources and human capital into our local sugar industries and produce enough sugar, the amount of sugar that we need. So, of course, it's very highly politically connected. But where we start is just telling the story as it is, confronting it and saying, these are the people who've been doing this. So now how do we move forward from here? Because as we hide behind the veil, 2022, we're talking about the same thing. You know, it's just going to be a continuous cycle.
And Caleb, maybe to bring you back, why do we hide these names, especially when they're known? It seems like to you and Patrick, it's obvious. And it should be obvious to the public, but if it is that obvious, why not mention the person?
I think because sugar issue, the same cartels behind sugar are as vicious as the same cartels that are behind drugs and drug business in this country.
Well, we're not saying that whoever the sugar daddy was brought in drugs, but it seems like it's almost in the public domain that it is known that the sugar daddy, and that's why he was called sugar daddy anyway, is because he was dealing with sugar.
I know.
And the reason I'm asking that question is because as the media, sometimes looking at the response we have here, the biggest number of, the percentage of those saying what we should do is give names, is put a face to this saga. But we seem to have a difficulty in putting a name to putting names to this saga. Yet they may be known.
I think the media are driven by the fear that was set by the judiciary in matters of defamation, when huge penalties are slapped against them. So that fear drives the media. Should I name, and what are the consequences I'll suffer? Then also the individual reporters, am I safe to name? Because the people have been killed, people have been injured, people have been maimed. The time will come, if you come to a time when people will be assured of protection from the cartels, then probably people will be talking more with much ease.
All right, Tom, what do we need to have in place for us to name?
I think the onus lies on Dr. Matiang'i. He's the one who told us this sugar in the market. I think it's up to him to tell us it is Caleb who imported this sugar. If he named it, I'm sure we can run with it.
But if we're saying that there is such a huge political connection, chances are politicians are not going to be the ones to name. That's where we come in as the media. Why can't we? And even as much as we say that we should put our weight behind investigative journalism, what are those investigators going to do, if not name?
I think that what Caleb was saying, this fear of huge fines, I think that's what makes people fear naming names. Julie, do you buy the excuse of huge fines? Shouldn't we be in a space where we have done our legal homework to a point where by the time you're bringing a name, you're doing it with the legal backing that is required?
Yeah, you actually believe, you know that the story is true before you name the name.
It's verified.
I think more than a fear of fines, it's a fear of death. These are cartels. It's a fear of being harmed. You're afraid for your family, for your livelihood, your life, because these cartels, as we understand it, are more or less running the country. And that's the establishment and the status quo, and they're not going to let go of that easily. So journalists will be putting their lives on the line. So you ask yourself, is Kenya worth it? Is this story worth it?
Is it worth your life?
Exactly. You weigh the pros and the cons. Basically, at the end of the day, what's going to come of you? What is going to be the huge benefit of you telling that story? And is your life worth it?
Well, the question then would be, and let me refer now that it's a football season, there is the Ghanaian journalist who did this story on bribery of, referees who are receiving bribes, and that, of course, hit us as Kenyans. And I'm sure for him to do a story like that, we're talking about, it's an international thing, and his life could also be at risk. So is it that we don't have journalists who are willing to put their lives on the line, or is it that our laws do not protect us well enough, Caleb?
I think we've come a long way. If a media house invests in investigative journalism as a house, and you have a team that is investigating, then it's safer that way. So it's a team of, let's say, 4 or 5 journalists with the backing of their lawyers, backing of the media house, with resources. Then they'll feel safe enough to investigate and tease out all these names that we are looking for. But individual reporters, no story is worth dying for. And I think in Ghana, the government and institutions have shown that, proven that they can defend and protect their own. So we have a lot to learn from them. Yet, once upon a time, we were ahead of them in the matters of democracy.
Okay. Tom, what do you think needs to be in place for you as a